Theriault in his home on the, what do they call this hill here?
3rd Avenue.
3rd Avenue. Used to be the Côte de Bellon.
Yes,
Yeah. And you're right at the top of it, huh?
right at the top.
Yeah. On a beautiful 25th of February, 2014. Lucien, did you think you would ever get that far, 2014?
Well, I always hoped to be that far or further, and I'm still looking forward.
It seems to me it's late, you know.
Yeah.
214, that doesn't seem right when we were...
You know, I'm only 87, you know.
87.
Got a ways to go yet.
87, so you were born in 26?
26, right.
Wow. Where was that?
That was in Wallagrass, just up the, or south, down the road, south of here, about 6 miles,
Yeah.
on the farm there.
Your parents had a lot of kids or what?
Yes, they did. They had 17 actually.
Oh,
There was 11 of us that lived to be adults, and now there's only 4 of us left.
That was common, wasn't it, huh?
Oh, yes, the families, the farm families especially, had a lot of kids.
Yeah.
I should say that my wife's family had a lot of kids also. They weren't farmers. They were merchant kind of.
Yeah. That was, all families were much bigger.
Oh yes, yeah, very few families had like 3 or 4 kids that you can see today. You know,
Yeah.
that was almost unheard of.
3 or 4 today is big.
Yeah.
Yeah. My grandparents on my mother's side, the Franks, they had 16.
Yeah.
And I never understood how he brought up 16
Right.
kids.
Right. Yeah.
He was a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
He was not a farmer.
Yeah.
I guess he was a blacksmith.
They did without a lot of things. Is
Yeah,
what it amounts to, because you couldn't live today's style with that many kids anymore. Not with that level of income.
Well, there was hardly any money, I guess.
Oh, yeah. No, you didn't go to the restaurants very often.
No. There probably were not any.
Yeah.
Now this home here that you have is brand new.
This was built in 2001. We have almost the same house. You probably saw it in Eagle Lake.
Yeah.
And we built that in 1993 when we moved to Ohio, back to Fort Kent.
It's been that long.
Yeah, that'd be 21 years.
21
this year.
years.
Yeah, can't believe I've been retired 25 years now.
You built this house too.
Yeah.
You built that one there and this one here.
Yeah, I designed both of them, and this house is at first it was kind of confusing because the plan is exactly just reverse.
Oh,
So you come into the house, you look, you go left or right.
because you lived in the other one.
You're right.
Yeah. So it seems to me that Wallagrass is not good farming country. It's hilly, isn't it?
A lot of it is it's not land like you see in Senegat, for example. Senegat is a beautiful farmland.
Yeah.
The pieces were kind of cut up. You'd have valleys and swampy areas in between pieces. Like we had 3 fairly good-sized pieces with pieces of wood in between them on the farm. Each piece was probably around 25 acres or thereabouts.
Now this was away from the Fish River, though.
Actually, it abuts the Fish River.
Oh, it does?
The land goes all the way down to the Fish River.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember the Lebe. Lebe had a sawmill on the Fish River, and the land abutted right up against that.
See, now I've heard about that. There was a sawmill there, and I never heard of it before, and I never saw it, and people who told me about it weren't sure.
Yeah, there was a pretty good sized mill. They would float the logs down the river.
From Eagle Lake?
From sometimes down the Fish River, and then the Wallagrass River, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and at that time, I don't think that the Plud Mill was there, because the Plud Mill had a dam put in on the Wallagrass River, and they had a sawmill there too.
See,
so
that's
before that, they used to go down through there and to the Fish River lakes and so on. And it was a pretty good sized operation. In fact, he had built a boarding house at that facility where he probably housed 15, 20 people in that worked in the
Isn't
mill.
that something, eh?
Yeah. I just barely remember seeing the mill and seeing the boarding house and so on, and it probably closed, I would say, about the time that I was maybe 6 years old or thereabouts.
Probably the Depression hit it.
30, yeah, the 30s, yeah, early 30s.
So they made what, planks and
Yeah,
studs?
it was regular lumber.
Yeah.
They would make 2x4s and 2x6s.
Oh, okay.
And a regular 3/4 inch. It was at that time, there was a lot of 3/4 inch boarding that was used for siding. You didn't have plywood, you had to use
Oh,
it.
yeah. And then you say a Plord had another mill down there?
That was in Wallagrass. You know where you interviewed Aurore Michaud?
Yeah, okay.
Just next, back to the house there, and on the Wallagrass stream, there was a sawmill, a flour grinding mill, and they would take the water from that dam to drive the sawmill and the grinding mill as well.
Ah,
I remember taking grain there, buckwheat and oats to be ground for the farm.
Yeah.
And then hauling. They'd drive wood, and sometimes people would bring wood with a truck or something or other, and drop it in the water, and then they'd haul it into the mill.
and that too was planks and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Now, how did you lived right, where was that?
Do you know where the grammar school is in Wallagrass?
Yeah,
Well, just up there, you just go up maybe 800 feet from there was where the farm home was. In fact, one of the smaller house that was built in the 36 is now Rob Connors, works for Quigley now. He bought that house, and the next house about the original farmhouse that they had was still there. And the barn that was gone, the barn burnt in 1940, and then we rebuilt it, and then Euclid is the one that took the farm over, 1947.
Euclid's your brother?
Yeah.
Still lives, huh?
He died about 2-3 years ago,
Okay.
and his wife is still at the home in Fort Kent here.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he operated the farm until, I'm not sure I know the date, but
Yeah.
in the 70s.
He was quite older and he was still doing it.
Yeah, actually, I think it's around the 70s that he quit. He was doing mostly seed potato farming,
Oh, okay.
and that was a better income source for him than regular table potatoes.
Who was your dad?
Ulysse Theriault.
Ah, puis l'autre, c'est Ulysse Junior. Ton frère, qui c'est qui
No,
est...
Euclid.
Oh,
was the
Euclid,
one that had the
oui,
farm,
okay.
took the farm, yeah.
There's a Ulysse Junior, isn't there?
There's a Ulysse Junior Michaud.
Oh,
He lives in Watergrass.
oh, okay.
And his father was, Thomas Michaud was his father, and then Ulysse was Thomas's
okay.
son.
So was your life when you were a kid? There was everybody lived like that, huh?
It was the way it was, You got a building where you had wood in it, and you went in and you had a big box in the kitchen area where you brought wood every day, and That's how you heat the house with wood stoves.
Yeah.
No furnace. A wood stove in the what we call the sitting room, and then a regular wood stove in the kitchen area.
Yeah.
And until the barn burnt in 1940, we would store potatoes in the basement of the barn and also in the basement of the house.
Yeah.
We'd store probably a couple thousand barrels in the barn itself. And that year that the barn burned, we lost quite a bit of that. The barn was full of hay and full of oats.
Almost.
So there was quite a fire.
Yeah.
But fortunately, we were able to save all the other buildings.
Now, a house like that, c'était pas un vrai basement, ça. Did you have a full basement where you could walk in?
It was a full basement.
Oh, you did?
And it was rock, flat rock, masonry kind of construction.
Yeah. The foundation was.
The foundation was, yeah.
And did your mother must have had some canning in there?
Oh, yes. There was a regular part of it where we had a bunch of cupboards and canning and
Yeah.
the old clay thing would put salt, dandelions and stuff like that. You
Yeah.
know.
People ate everything that was around them.
Yeah, we always canned a lot of meats because you didn't have the kind of refrigeration that you have today. So
Yeah.
you canned chicken, you'd always, we'd kill hogs and beef and sheep and so on, and share it with the neighbors, and then somebody would kill one later on, and then share it back.
Oh, yeah.
But in the wintertime, which was interesting, later in the fall, when we'd kill an animal like that, to keep the meat, we'd actually freeze it, put it into an oat bin, big oat bin. It would freeze just like it's in a regular freezer.
Is that right?
And you need a 5-pound piece of meat, you'd go and dig out the oat, pull it up, and go cook it.
Yeah, it was a different...
Well, you know, you had hens, you had pigs, you know, you had everything. You almost, you didn't really rely much on the outside
Yeah.
for what you needed.
You were self-sufficient.
Yeah, very much so.
The only thing you'd probably buy would be sugar and molasses.
Sugar and regular flour.
Yeah.
And molasses, that was, you know, but not a big deal.
Yeah.
But sugar, you'd always buy in 100-pound bags, flour in 100-pound bags, and we'd have these big drawers that
Yeah.
put it in.
A big bin.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the buckwheat flour.
Yeah. But we were a long time. I don't remember the exact year. The house did not have a bathroom in it. We had water, but there was no bathroom. The water was gotten from Thomas Martin up the hill from us. There was a spring up in the field that would bring water to a set of barrels on top of the hill there, and we had a line that went up to that barrel, and it would just draw water from that. And then in the attic above the kitchen, we had two, at least 60, 70 gallon barrel. The water would flow into that, and then the overflow from that would go to the barn. And it would just run constantly.
Oh.
Whatever overflowed the barrels up above would run to the barn, and whatever overflowed the barrel, the barn would just run out. Just drained out. And
There was a good spring.
yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's a spring that's still there, and it's still.
And it was good water, huh?
Oh yeah, beautiful water.
Yeah. I know my father, next to the lake in Long Lake there, he had a spring like that.
Yeah,
And he fed 3 or 4 houses, you know.
yeah.
It was great water to drink.
Was it elevated enough
No,
so you could gravity flow, or do you have to pump it?
They had to pump it, yeah.
Yeah, this was strictly gravity flow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, in those days, you must, a little kid, that you must have done a lot of work, a lot of chores.
You know, you always had the chores. You take care of the animals, you feed them, clean the stalls and stuff like that. And, you know, I can remember when, after planting, we'd have to cultivate the potatoes, of course.
Yeah.
I can remember putting the harness on the horse. I could just barely reach to get the harness on top of a horse. And I remember one year we were building a road between one piece of land and the other. It was through a swamp. And I was driving a team of horse, and we have a scraper. We'd plow the dirt where we wanted to get some dirt.
Oh, yeah.
We'd plow it, and then we'd go in with these scrapers. I don't know if you remember the scrapers. Would be that wide with handles on each side. Road that, pull it down, dump it, and come back. And I was probably 7, 8 years old driving a team of horse at that time. Yeah.
Isn't that something, huh?
Yeah. No, you wouldn't even think of that today.
Today, the kids that age, all they do is text.
Yeah.
Yeah, my father was telling me that he was behind a horse at 9 years old.
Yeah.
And the plow was higher than him, you know.
Yes, the single row plow.
Yeah. And when it would hit a rock there, he'd have to start over.
Right.
There's no way that he could continue.
Yeah.
So that was labor intensive.
It was, but everybody did it.
Yeah.
Nothing unusual about it. You just did it.
Yeah.
know. It was.
But it employed a lot of people.
Yes, and in the wintertime, farmers would hire their horses and themselves to go in the woods.
Okay.
You would be gone from probably sometimes in November or thereabouts till sometimes in March. They would be off in the woods hauling with their bobsleds and hauling logs back to a place where they could drive it on the rivers or something.
Yeah. Did they come home at all, or?
During that time, usually not, yeah. No, they were off, like sometimes 25, 30 miles away from there, so it's not something you do very easily.
Yeah. You never did that?
No, I never did that. That was before I was...
Yeah, your father did it.
My father, my brothers, my older brothers,
Okay.
Ray and Guy did that.
I remember Guy Theriault. I remember him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had been away for a while, yeah?
Actually, he was in Biddeford. He lived in Biddeford for a while. And then he came back to northern Maine in the late 40s, 40, 50. So after that, he was around in this area.
Yeah.
His first wife contacted TB.
Oh, yeah.
And so she was in the sanitarium in Presque Isle. I know she was there in 1946 when I came back out of the service. And she died several years after that. And he remarried several years after that. He married Simone Clevet, Doris Clevet's sister.
Oh, okay.
And she died of a heart attack. I'm trying to think, it's 1994, yeah. And after that, he moved to Canada. He had a cottage in Canada. Like Munich, I think it is. I'm not sure yet, but anyway. And he was staying there, and then he would board with some place another, and so on. And at the end, he was living in a like an assisted living facility on Dr. Baker.
Baker?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you were like one of the youngest ones in the family?
No, actually, there's 2 girls and a boy younger than I am that lived to be adult. Denford, Lorraine, who lives in Calais now. Denford lives in New Britain, or in that area, Connecticut. He had a machinist, tool-making shop business that he sold that and sold. And that, of course, Paul Putz's wife.
Oh, yeah.
I know you know him.
Huh?
I know you know him.
Yeah. So the farm was taken over by...
By Euclid, yeah.
Yeah.
He was the one, there was a girl between myself and Euclid, and he's the one that took... When he went into service for a short while also during the World War II. So he came home about the same time that I did back in 1946, and Dad still owned the farm then. So we both worked part-time. I worked part-time. He worked full-time on the farm that summer, and then he bought the farm that fall. Can you imagine that? He bought the farm, the whole thing for $10,000.
Yeah.
Imagine that. The tool, the tools, the truck, everything. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, you know, in those days, you probably could build a home for less than 10,000. Huh?
Yeah, it wasn't unusual to build a place for around $5,000.
Yeah. And today, I don't know how a guy would say, I want to be a farmer, how much money he would need.
Unbelievable.
You know, we're talking millions because...
And, well, the tools that they need to do it today are expensive, plus you have to have them. It's not like you're going to go get a team of horses or a couple team of horses and do it. You know? You can't cultivate enough land to make it pay with that kind of a setup.
It's very different. I was reading this week about Saint Agathe in 1920s, 148 farmers.
Yeah.
A population of over 2,000, down to 800 now.
Yeah.
And every house was a farm, almost, you know?
Yeah, there was very few in that area that were not farmers or living off of it.
Yeah.
I know Marie's uncle, Albert Michaud, you probably know him.
Oh, yes.
That was her mother's brother.
Okay.
And they had a starch factory for a while.
They had a store.
They had the store, Zionid. That was the wife.
Zionid.
Yeah. And in fact, their last son was a town manager in Saint Agathe for a while, Clarence.
Clarence, Clarence Michaud. I remember the foundation of their store. I never saw their store. Right? That burned down.
Yeah.
And I never saw the store itself.
I never did that either, because by the time that I got to know them, it was in the 40s, late 40s, they were just living in the house at that time. They were still operating, selling furniture more or less out of catalog.
Okay. And the starch factories, you know.
Yeah. They had a starch factory in Saint Agathe, and then they had something in Fringeville.
Okay.
Later on too. I think when the regulation couldn't you couldn't dump anymore in the lake there, they moved it or something.
It's quite something. I imagine Wallagrass Stream must have been polluted.
Actually, it wasn't anything unusual about that, because people weren't dumping into that or anything like that. The only thing that was on the stream was the Plud Mill, and they were just, taking water to drive their turbines, to drive the saws. I don't remember even sawdust getting dumped in the water.
Is that right?
And of course, even that is not dirty, but it's it still will pile up. But and even the grinding mill, where the shells from the oats and the buckwheat and so on, I don't remember it getting into the water. So that river was never really above that. Certainly was nothing.
No, it was a fast-moving stream.
Yeah, it always had enough water, and of course after they built the dam, they'd held the water up high enough so they could get enough head to drive, and probably 10, 12 foot of head down to the turbines, and enough to drive.
Because in Saint Agathe there, the starch, whatever you call it, that's left there from the making, was dumped into the brook and into the lake.
The same thing in the Fort Kent, the Page starch factory in Fort Kent. That's the way it was.
Oh yeah.
That's why that ended up closing after the legislation changed and not allowing that anymore.
Yeah. And
there was not as many farmers that were supplying for, that were with the small potatoes and stuff like that. That's what they were using for making starch.
Well, I remember, I think it was 1950, where the price got so bad that there was no use
Yeah,
hauling it anywhere.
right, yeah.
So the starch factory took everything they
Yeah.
could, but it was like 50 cents a barrel.
Oh, yeah, no, it was hardly worth driving it into
Yeah,
the town. But it's amazing, you know, you'd drive by that starch factory and you'd see 7 or 8 trucks out in line there waiting to unload.
yeah.
Page made a pretty good business out of that.
Yeah, there was work for everybody, you know.
Yep.
I remember what they called a farmer in a little town like Saint Agathe, same place, same thing with you. And then what they called les journaliers,
Yeah,
which were people who worked from day to day.
right.
They were laborers.
Work for the farmers or the work
Yeah.
at whatever. A lot of them went into cutting pulp. That became quite an activity afterwards.
Yeah,
Back quite a ways, it was just lumber for construction lumber and stuff like that.
yeah.
But then back, I don't remember when that started, but the pulp mill.
Well, I
developed
think
in the
Madawaska started in 1920,
20s.
but their material came from Canada. I
Yeah,
think.
most of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that didn't affect us too much.
Well,
But Van Buren had a lot of mills.
yeah, that's amazing how that went.
Yeah.
I thought that was going to build up to be quite the facility, and it just died down
Yeah.
after a while there too. I guess it must have been after the Depression when that happened.
I think Van Buren was the big town in the valley
Yeah,
100 years ago,
yeah,
and they had a college,
yeah.
and they had all these mills. And now it's probably 1/3 of,
Yeah. Oh,
from
yes.
6,000 to about 2.
Yeah.
Well, I was watching the tournament this weekend. The Van Buren girls went to the finals,
Oh, yeah.
and they put the statistics on the TV there, and they said 89 students in the whole high school.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
I'm sure they used to graduate that many.
Oh, yeah.
It's Fort Kent here. When my kids were young, close to 200 would graduate.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well,
Now,
that's some step up from when I graduated. 26 people graduated.
oh, is that right?
Of course, at that time, a lot of kids did not go to high school.
Yeah.
In my family, my brother Claude, that had the electrical shop in here, was the first one to go to high school. And then after that, you know, it skipped a couple of people, and then I went to high school after that.
Claude, so you had the tourist home?
Yeah,
Okay. Which became Dubois Restaurant.
right. Yeah,
Which is-
he sold it to
To
Clarence.
Clarence.
Yeah.
Isn't that something that's empty also? And it was a very good restaurant.
And I was amazed. I was hoping the guys that moved in there, and they spent quite a bit of money refurbishing and so on. It was going to go, but
Yeah.
competition from the other Chinese
Yeah.
restaurant there, it was too much for him.
Yeah. So the girls, did they go to schools or high school?
Well, Bernadine went to the training school, which is the one older than I am, for a couple of years, but she never finished. At that time, then she went to Connecticut. This was during the war, so
Yeah.
the war industry was employing a lot of people. She went there, and then when she came out, she met a young man from Monson, Maine, married, lived in Monson all her life. Then Lorraine, after me, went to school. We went to high school, and then she worked. In fact, she was the secretary for the superintendent of school for a number of years here in Fort Kent. Her husband, Peter Gendreau from St. Francis, was a school teacher also.
Oh, yeah.
He died young as a heart attack. Anyway, she was a widow for a while. She remarried, and the second husband also died. She's still a widow. She lives in Calais now. And Denford moved to after, I guess, working for Euclid on the farm for a year or something like that, then he moved to Connecticut and got involved in tool making business. He ended up becoming a partner in a tool making business, and ran that for probably 30 some odd years. And he retired 2 years ago, I think, something like that. Sold the business, and he's got a nice family, 7 kids, I think.
It's amazing that all the people who lived around here, all these little towns, families probably averaged 10 or 12 kids.
Yeah.
And there were only 29 in your senior class, right?
26.
26.
Yeah.
So most of them didn't go to school.
Some of them you probably know. Well, Adam Bouchard was in my class.
Okay.
Dana Lamar.
Yeah.
Then the other one is Lucille Tosche.
Okay.
That's the only one around here other than myself.
Yeah.
In this area. John Jalbert, you probably don't know that name. He was Willard, not Willard. James Jalbert's brother. You know James.
Yeah.
He's younger than James, of course. And Robert, who's a lawyer.
Yeah.
And he left here, went to Germany to music school, and he's married there and stayed there.
Stayed in Germany.
And he came back for the 50th anniversary, for 50th reunion, high school reunion, in 1994. First time, but I'd seen him since.
Is that something, huh?
Yeah.
So you went there right after the war?
I was enlisted in the. Oh, you mean myself?
John.
Yeah, John. Yeah, actually, I don't think he ever was in the service. Not that I know of, at least. No.
James was.
Yeah, James.
But he was in the Pacific,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, even in my day, I remember when I graduated from the 8th grade in '52.
Yeah.
We were such a small group in Saint Agathe there that the 8th grade and the seniors graduated together. And we have a picture, and there's one guy graduating with the girls.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now the girls were mostly boarders, from around the county.
Yeah.
So most of the guys, they left for Connecticut.
Oh yeah.
Now, did you see that in Wallagrass a lot, the whole...
Yeah, down in Connecticut, mostly in the Connecticut area. There was some in the Biddeford area, but not as much. But mostly in the Hartford, New Britain, Bristol, those are the areas.
Whole families.
Pratt and Whitney and Fafner and GE had a plant down there in Plainville also. Trumbull actually was the name of the place at that time.
I think that they don't have that kind of industry anymore.
Well, they do, but not the volume.
Yeah.
Not the volume they had. Like Pratt and Whitney is still in Hartford, East Hartford, West Hartford. The other companies again, they're probably 1/4 the volume they did at that time.
Yeah.
So they're not.
Well, you can look around here and see the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
Where you had a camp of 100 men cutting wood, now they have a harvester.
Right. He does the same as a crew of 50 men.
Yeah, it's amazing, see? And that's the way it is all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
Fishermen the same way. And,
Yeah.
The only place where there's still labor like that is very poor countries,
Yeah, well, they can't afford the machinery to do automation.
Yeah. So you were drafted?
No.
What year did you graduate?
1944.
44, okay.
I was trying to get into what was called at the time the V5 or the V12 Navy program. And one of my friends, Theriault, had just gotten enlisted into that. So I tried for that. For some reason or other, when I went to Boston, I got into a little discussion with somebody that they didn't like what I was doing or something or other. I never made it, but then I volunteered for the regular Navy.
Oh.
And I graduated in June, and June 26th I was in Sampson, New York at the Naval Training Center there.
On va attendre un petit peu, là. J'attends, là. Again, about this
V5 and V12 program. One of them was to train aviators, and the other one was to train naval officers. They would actually bring you in, put you in college,
Oh,
and usually with some military training at the same time. And as I say, I was trying for one or the other of those, and what happened at a examination, physical examination I was at, this guy gives me a book with symbols in it for colorblind tests. So I picked up the book and started to look at it, and he comes in after he had given me the book, but I wasn't supposed to look at it, I guess. Said, "What are you doing, trying to learn this by heart?" I said, "No, I don't learn with my heart, I learn with my brain." I think that ticked him off. Anyway, he reported that I had albumin in my blood.
oh,
So when I came back, I went to see Dr. Albert, and he says, "Did you have eggs this morning?" I says, "Yeah." He says, "That's what happened." He says, "You don't have any today."
isn't that
But
something?
anyway, I said, forget that. I'll just join.
Yeah.
Volunteer to join the Navy. And as I say, in June, after the graduation, I went into the Sampson
Yeah.
and stayed there for 3 months, doing regular boot camp training. And then with my electrical background, by the way, when I was a sophomore in high school, I took an electrician's course. Saint-Amand, you probably don't know that name either. One of the houses that they tore down right next to the painting that's on the old Ford garage there, that was Saint-Amand. Saint-Amand was training different people for the government actually was paying him to do that, training people to become electricians. So this one winter, traveling from Watergrass, Roland Toussaint. Remember Roland Toussaint? Roland was a little younger than I was, but he was driving. So he would drive the truck and pick up 2 or 3 of us in Watergrass and come to wherever we were doing work. So that winter I took this electrician's course. And at that time there was no such thing as an electrician's license. You just became an electrician, learning what. So when I was in the Navy, then this came up as a discussion. So they said, well, this would be a good candidate to send to aviation electrician school in Jacksonville, Florida. So I did that from, I came out of boot camp in September or thereabouts. Went to Jacksonville, was there for about 6 months, and then transferred to what was now it was Banana River Naval Air Station at the time, but where the missile firing is from there.
Kennedy,
Cape Kennedy. And there I did maintenance on different kinds of planes. A lot of planes were being brought back to this, what they call assembly and repair shop, full of holes and whatnot.
Yeah.
We would repair them, get them back in the fleet. And then I was in charge of maintenance for seaplanes. We had a bunch of seaplanes that we were patrolling from Florida down to South America with look out for submarines at that time.
There was always a threat of Japanese on the west coast and Germans on the east coast attacking.
There were submarines all along through there, as you'd have to watch. These planes had huge carbon arc searchlight on them. So once you detected anything, you tried to find.
So there were some German subs.
They were
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like today, they would just launch missiles and everything.
Yeah,
It's a good thing
Yeah.
we didn't have that technology
No,
back then.
That's
Huh?
right.
Would have destroyed the world.
No, I hope we never ram into what you would call a major conflict anymore with the atomic facilities that are
Yeah.
available now. It's
It's dangerous, huh?
Yeah.
It's a dangerous world.
Yeah.
Some guy who's a little crazy might start it just for the. It's not good. It makes us insecure.
Right.
So you never went across then?
No, I was in Florida all this time. I would fly out over, northern end of South America and come back, but I never took a boat, never was on a boat or anything like that. I was on land all the time.
Yeah. So now you come home.
This was 1946.
Yeah.
July 6th is when I got discharged. I came home, and Claude then had his electrical business in the building next to where Dubois was there, which is now a little bit of a parking area.
Oh, yeah.
So I was working for him as an electrician and also on the farm for the summertime. And courting my wife, of course.
Oh, you knew her from high school, what?
Yeah, no, I did not. I'd never met her. I knew her father. I knew some of her brothers and so on, but I'd never met her. And my sister, Lorraine, was living at their house.
Uh-huh.
She was working in town. She was working for the superintendent of school in town. Anyway, so she said to Marie, she said, you ought to meet my brother. So one time or other, we met at the Silver Dollar.
Oh, okay.
And so that started the courtship.
Ah.
And a year later, we got married in July 47.
Her father was,
He was...
what was his name?
Jose Zbe. You know where Bob Claude's house lived now? Bob on...
Okay.
On
Elm?
Elm Street. Well, that was their house. No, there was another guy that lived there before Bob bought it. That bought it from his...
Now, who was Claude Audebert?
Claude was Marie's cousin.
Okay.
He was Vin Audbert's son. He died a long time ago on a railroad. Got killed at a railroad crossing.
Because I've got a story in my book I'm writing from Reginald Audebert.
Yeah.
And he was Claude's son, right?
Yeah.
And he left here in '59.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's ever come back.
Yeah, there was. I'm trying to think. There's Anne, and that was Claude's sister. She's dead now too.
Stuur, Else heeft zijn groot familie, your wife?
Yeah, there was 11, 12 of them.
Yeah.
We'll see some pictures of that later on.
Her father was a merchant, you said?
He was. He had the building where the swamp buck is now.
Okay.
That building that's where the store was. And we sold, building materials and sporting goods and that kind of merchant.
Yeah. Do you remember? Because somebody else told me that downtown Fort Kent on a Saturday night in those days was something else.
Yeah, it was busy. Everybody would go downtown Saturday night, and the guys from the drinking guys from Allagash would be rousing around.
Yeah.
There was a what they call it vendor in back of what was then the Newberry store.
Okay.
Where there was a lot of going in and out of there and so on. And occasionally there'd be fights in the alley there.
It was a bootlegging place?
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, the liquor, nobody had a liquor license. Some of them must have had beer license, because I know Gene's Diner, which was right on the corner of Hall Street.
Yeah.
I know they had a gin license, and then there was another little restaurant behind that, I can't remember his first name, Theriault, in a way, he operated for a while. But,
It was a different time.
oh yes, very much so.
So now you're still here in Theriault. You got married.
Oh yes, no, this.
And you're working.
Well, actually, we got married in '47. In the fall, we drove to. In fact, on our honeymoon, I bought a trailer in Brunswick because I knew I was going to be going at the annex. The University main annex was in the Brunswick air base there. So we bought that in Brunswick, and when in the fall we drove down, had the trailer brought into a parking area, a small trailer lot, and we stayed there. Now our daughter was born the next, just before the end of the school year that year, and then after that, the next 3 years we were in Orono. We moved the trailer, and every summer I'd hitch on to the trailer and bring it to Fort Kent, park it behind her house here on Elm Street, and we'd stay there for 3 months, and then I'd work for my brother
Okay.
as an electrician. And
So how did you get into UMO?
well, that was the year that I came out. After I came out, I did apply to university, and they would not accept me because I did not have enough math
Oh,
training. Knowing that, when I was in the service, I took some correspondence algebra course, but I needed some geometry and so on. So I went to see Crocker, who was president of the Madawaska Training School, about that. He says, we'll take care of that. I said, so in about 2-3 months period of time, I would go with him to the office. He'd give me assignments, and I'd go and do it. And then I got credit enough to be accepted into university. So then in the fall, I was accepted. And
you wanted to be an engineer or something?
yes.
From way back, or?
Well, from the time that I was probably 17 or 18, that's what I wanted. When I was in high school, I expected to be a farmer, so I took the agriculture course in high school. At that time, there was an agriculture course. Alton Bridges, you probably may have known him.
No.
He was a teacher at that time. In fact, he married one of the Pinkin girls.
Okay.
And his marker is he's buried in the Protestant cemetery here in town.
Now, the high school at that time was just a little building, yeah?
Yeah, well, actually, I don't happen to have any pictures of it offhand, but
Well, we've seen it.
yeah, there was. They've put an addition. Originally, there was the building was probably about 40 feet deep. Then they put an addition on the back of that building, and it was probably 70, 80 feet long or something like that. And also the heating system was put into that. That was done before I went there to school, because I remember seeing it. And it was a 2-story building.
Yeah, I've seen it. It was
Yeah.
in front of the present-day high school, right?
It was in actually, it's just about the same place.
Same place.
Yeah.
Because this high school here was 1960, wasn't it? That they, or 52? No,
It's in the 50s.
in the 50s.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And George.
So you didn't have a gym? You didn't have a...
No, we used the Madawaska Training School gym
Okay.
at that time.
So you
So
didn't-
that was the gym, and that was it was set up with a stage, so
Yeah.
and the plays they had in there and so on. And the kids played ball in there, and
Okay.
basketball and so on. And that was the facility really
Yeah.
for town. At that time, there was 4 buildings for the house. There was a dormitory,
Yeah.
women's dormitory, then there was a men's dormitory in back in the dining room, and then what they call the Crocker Hall,
Yeah.
and then the gym back in back of that, which is now the library.
I think that college, when it was known as a college, probably came down to 50 students, I think,
Yes.
at one time.
Yeah.
And they tried to
Well,
cook
it's got through. It's been to at least 3 name change.
Yeah.
First was the Madawaska Training School, and then another college name, and then the university.
Yeah, it was Fort Kent State Teachers College.
Yeah,
And then Fort Kent State College.
yeah,
And then University of Maine, Fort
yeah.
Kent.
Okay. So that's actually 4 different
Yeah,
names.
and we're very happy to have
Oh,
it.
yeah. Oh, that's good. You know, between the employment in the schools,
Yeah,
in the college, and the university, this is really what's keeping this town stable.
yeah. Yeah, it's amazing because, and you know, at the time that it happens, like when they started this college here, you never know the end of it.
Right.
You can't imagine it. And then all the times they tried to close it. I was there a couple of times,
Yeah,
where
I know.
people would just,
Oh, yeah, no way.
and now look at it, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And it brings a lot of different people from all over the place. It's good for our
Oh,
culture.
yes, yeah. Their enrollment now has got to be 1,300.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you graduated from Orono, and you had a family.
I had one daughter.
That's
That
kind of
daughter-
tough. Your
daughter
wife was working?
3 years old. No, my wife never had to work. I was on the GI Bill,
Oh, yes.
and they were paying all the college expenses and so on, plus they were paying the service person. They started off at $105 a month or something like that. And after we got the one child, I think it went up to $115 a month. We lived, you know.
Well, you know, in those days, $25 a
Yeah.
week.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, well, my wife would go to the grocery store, and $15 was what she'd have to spend, you know, that's it.
Yeah.
You gotta make
Yeah.
it work from there. We had hamburgers often and stuff
Yeah.
like that, you know.
Do you know that program still exists, GI Bill?
Yes, it does.
It does.
In a different degree, but it's still known as,
Because that was a great program.
oh yeah, that was one of the best things that was done for
Yeah.
service people at that time. The enrollment in the university just went like
Yeah.
that when that happened, you know. And, you know, we're talking millions of men available for
Yeah.
going to college at that time that would not have gone otherwise.
Would not have gone. Plus, it was good that, you know, they had careers
Oh, yeah.
instead of just working for
Yeah, well,
somebody.
you know, yes, they paid, but then the extra
Yeah.
taxes they collected because of the income that I was
Yeah.
able to generate paid it back.
Oh, yeah. It's just that shouldn't we be doing stuff like that all
Yeah.
the time?
Oh,
You
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
trying to help people to get ahead.
Oh, yeah, it's sometimes difficult to find the tax money to do that, but on the other hand, it's difficult not to do it either.
I was reading about a country. I don't know which one it is. Smaller country is easier to run, I guess. But free medical care
Mm-hmm.
and free education for all their citizens.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
they must have some kind of natural resources that they're drawing from.
probably,
It's not
and the
just the
taxes
tax
must
base,
be
yeah.
high.
Yeah.
But here, going to college is almost. I was listening to a guy, 15 years graduated, and still owed $75,000.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
How do you get started with a debt like that?
Well, you know, when you think about, like they're talking about tuition and room and board and so on for a small college like this, you're talking almost $30,000 a year.
Boy,
You go to Ivy League school,
Yeah.
$50,000-$60,000.
Yeah.
You know, you take 4 years of that, that's a big bill.
yeah, it's how do you get out of it? You know,
No, it's I can't even imagine what, you know, people, even when they're making $70,000 to $100,000 a year to cover for
Yeah.
those kinds of bills in a reasonable time, and by the time they get to that, you know, the interest has accumulated the total numbers.
Yeah.
So it's not unusual for some kids to end up with $200,000-$300,000
Yeah.
bill in there.
Yeah, and then if you have any medical problems, completely.
Fortunately, I guess most students at that age would be still covered on their parents'
Yeah.
insurance program, so that's not that serious a deal until they get out of school.
Yeah.
But
But you talk about the GI Bill now. We're talking about Social Security. I don't know if you were old enough to remember the resistance to that program. Do you remember that?
No, I don't.
Ah, you don't remember that.
No.
But people resisted that.
Yeah.
The large corporations,
Oh, yeah.
and they were all. And then Medicare.
Yeah.
I mean, what would old people do
Oh, yeah.
today without
Yeah.
Medicare?
Yeah.
Oh, you back.
You know, when I remember, I think about it today, and I was wondering, well, how did I do that? I did not have an insurance, medical insurance, during the time after I left the service until I started to work for General Electric. That's like 5-6 years
Yeah.
almost. Fortunately, I didn't have any real
Yeah.
problem. We had one pregnancy. She went to the hospital where her sister was a nun and a nurse, and her uncle was the doctor, Dr. Froschy.
Okay.
And,
Yeah.
and didn't cost us anything, but other than that, I don't know where they got the money for it at the
Yeah.
time.
Well, it was reasonable then.
Yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
think my kids were born 50 years ago. $12 for, overnight,
Yeah.
and the doctor charged $50 to deliver the baby.
Yeah.
I mean, you come out of there with a bill of $150 maybe,
Yeah.
and
that-
she stayed there 5 days.
Kind of level you can handle.
You could handle that,
Yeah, right.
you know, even though you made $100 a week,
Right.
or
Yeah.
you could handle that. But now, I think appendicitis, or it's $20,000 or
Right.
something. It just
Right.
doesn't make sense.
Yeah. The numbers are up.
Yeah. So it's. I hope we get to take care of our people like we did in those days.
Yeah.
Establish those programs. Now you come out of college at UMO. You went to work right away.
You're right. In fact, I hooked on to the trailer. In fact, the day I graduated, it was funny. I got a call from the guy. I used to work for a guy in Bangor the last year as an electrician and a general service guy and so on. He calls me up. He says, "Hey, I got a customer in Bangor that they've got a problem. They've got no power, and I need your help." So I said, "Okay, I'll go down and find out what's to be done and so on." Well, somewhere or other they'd lost power. The service had broken down. They had an elevator in the building. They couldn't get up. They had no other way to get upstairs or something or other. So that same night that I graduated, I was working there from about 7 or 8 o'clock at night till probably 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, getting power back into that building. Anyway, that was quite an experience. So that then a day or so after that, I hooked onto the trailer. I had bought a truck, you could haul the trailer on, moved to Lynn. So I was working for General Electric now. And I had an unusual assignment. They found out that I had done work with motors and rebuilding motors and stuff like that. They says, "We need somebody to go into a service shop and take these motors apart, find out why they're failing and what we can do to keep this from happening." So I spent 3 months doing this, taking motors apart and then filing a report on what I'd found and what I'd recommend and so on.
You were like 25 years old then?
Let's see, this would have been, yeah, just about, yeah.
Now these were big problems for a guy just coming out of school.
Yeah. And then from there, I went to Pittsfield, Massachusetts. That was the power transformer operation there. This was a GE, what they call the GE test program. You'd give, normally they were 3-month assignment in different things. So I went to, in power transformer, and I did some actual design on some equipment for 3 months, and then I did some testing in power transformer, and then I did the supervisor of tests for radar gun directors that we were manufacturing in Pittsfield for another 7 or 8, 9 months, I think. Then I moved to Holyoke, which is just north of Springfield, in an assignment in engineering, in product engineering for GE, and it was distribution transformers, but the part of it that I was involved was specialty transformers, high voltage transformers for measuring, and current transformers and so on. And then, over the year I moved to different responsibilities and so on. So I left there when they decided to close that plant in 1965. I was supervisor of engineering at that time. I accepted a job in Pittsfield as a manager of advanced development for voltage regulator engineering in Pittsfield. I did that for a couple of years, and somebody came looking for me for another job as manager of design engineering for power transformer. So I did that.
That was in the 1960s.
That is, mid-60s.
You're still in Massachusetts.
Massachusetts. It was all that was all in Pittsfield now.
Yeah.
And at that time, there was some of the unusual product that I was involved with. For example, was designing a set of testing transformers that they wanted to be completely what they call corona-free, no ionization, at 1.5 million volts. I designed these 3 transformers at what you call cascade. One transformer is grounded, the next one drives the next transformer on pedestal, and the next one so on. So I got a picture of it, I'll show you upstairs. And in Holyoke, I had the responsibility for some very special DC equipment, very high voltage DC equipment that we were using for military application and stuff like that, and electrostatic precipitation, where when power stations, they have what they call precipitators to collect particle in the flue gas. These are energized with 50,000 volt transformers. They're transformers, but they're converted to DC, so that they attract the particle collected onto plates, and then they wrap the plates with air wrappers to knock the stuff down and so on. So this is all.
Desafío, moi je comprends.
Yeah.
So you were in the electrical engineering.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So you worked for GE most of your life, or what?
Well, no, I worked for GE from 51 to 69. In 69, one of the fellows that I used to work with at the Holyoke plant in Holyoke went to work for an X-ray company in Cleveland. At that time, that facility, that Picker X-ray, was looking for a manager of engineering for the company. So this guy put the bug in the president's ear. He says, "Hey, I know a guy." So he called me up, and I'll go find out what it's all about. Well, I got there and had an interview, and they had just built a brand new facilities for this facility. I looked around and found out that there was an area right there with a ski area right in the backyard and so on. I gave my wife, I says, "Hey, if this guy comes up with the right number, I'm going to take the job." And he did. And so I ended up, getting a sizable promotion, and took the job as manager of engineering there. And I stayed there until 1988 when I retired.
Pickering X-ray.
Picker, just
Oh, picker, yeah. Yeah, because, you know, as a chiropractor, we buy our own X-rays
X-ray
in our offices, and that was,
yeah.
I probably had one of those.
Yeah, very well have. We had, I was responsible for all the total product line. You had various X-ray systems, NMR, ultrasound, the CAT scanners
Yeah.
today. These were all under my supervision.
Did he stay in Cleveland?
Yeah, I stayed there until 1988 after I retired.
Now, you had a daughter right off, then
When we were in Holyoke, well, we had the first daughter when I was still in
school, yeah.
I was still a freshman in college. Then we had a second daughter was born when I was with General Electric in Holyoke. She was born on the 75th anniversary of General Electric.
Wow.
She was one of five people that were celebrated that day. They gave her 5 shares of GE stock or something or other. In fact, that stock appreciated in value, and when she graduated, she went in the convent after she went from high school and so on. Went in the convent, stayed in the convent for about 7 years, and when she came out, she wanted to go to work somewhere. So I was cashed in the bond and bought her a car.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that something? Huh?
And then Carol was born in 55. Shortly after that. She was born in 53 and Carol was born in 53.
So that was still in Massachusetts. Huh?
Yeah, we were still in Holyoke at that time.
Well, it looks like we're going to take a break right now and maybe look at some pictures. So there's a Picker X-ray, huh? What is that?
Picker, yeah. This is an organization. The organization I had, this is my name up there.
Okay, so you're on top of that.
Yeah.
Lucien Joseph?
Yeah. And of course, this is my license from professional engineering and my diploma. And this is just a bunch of guys that signed that and gave me that.
Yeah.
After that, there's 2 guys on the. This is a.
Holy.
There's 3 of those to give you. They were each 500,000 volt apiece.
Ça, c'est du pouvoir, hein?
Yeah. Well, it's high voltage, not very high. See, this one was connected here, would come up to here and drive this next unit and so on. So really quite a record.
And you're the one who designed that?
Yeah. This one I didn't design, but I was responsible for the development of it. It's a 750,000 volt transformer. It's the highest single phase transformer design in the world.
Holy gee, why that's in Cleveland?
That was that was in Pittsfield, Mass. Power transformer. And this is just an award. And this is the family. You can see that.
Ah. Nomme-les, ouais.
Well, the girls are Bertha, Adrienne, Jacques, Lorraine, my mother, my dad, Nanette, Bernice,
Desjardins, ouais.
and Bernadine, that lives in Munson. And there's the youngest boy, Denford, myself, and Euclid, that was on the farm, and Claude, and Ray, who lives in Connecticut, and Guy.
Yeah, isn't that something? I knew 2 or 3 of the guys.
In-laws in there, that when they were, Euclid was probably the youngest one that was married. Like Bernadine is missing there.
Oh, okay.
No, she's there, yeah, that's it. So there's Adrian, Jacques, and Bertha, and Guy, and Yvette, and Ray, and his wife Marion. There's Claude and Louise Desjardins, Edward and Bernice, and Euclid and Rella.
Quite a family, huh?
Marie, of course. The oldest one, May, and Bet, and Carl.
There's Carl.
Yeah.
Holy boys.
Let's see, that would be about 1956.
Yeah. Your 50th wedding
50,
anniversary.
yeah. There's Carl and then May
Yeah.
and Benton.
That was here?
Yeah, it was in Eagle Lake.
Oh, yeah.
Kent. This is where the farm was, right here. You see the Fish River? So the farm was from Route 11, which would be here, or here, and it goes all the way down to the river.
Route 11, attends, là, ça pose à travers, là, right there.
Here, right
Yeah,
here.
yeah. And on the right is the Fish River.
Yeah.
So that went both sides of the road,
Actually, it did.
your farm.
And then we had some other land up above in here, too, that's not shown now. It's not divided, but at that time.
Mhm. You and your dog?
Yeah.
Long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. I was probably about maybe
Looks like you're
2,
5 years
3
old.
years
Huh?
old, yeah.
Oh,
And my father there and 3 of my brothers. And the last of the boys is sitting on top of the pile, Denford. I wasn't in that picture.
that was a big barn.
Yeah, it was a good-sized barn. You can't read it there, but on the side here, there's a UT in 1917, the year that it was built.
Okay. That's you in the Navy.
Yeah.
Right, t'avais des curls.
Yeah, I had hair then. This is the boot camp picture.
Oh, yeah.
You can see I'm up in here somewhere. So it's a good crowd from high school then.
That's when she graduated from high school.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then this is when we got married.
Did you say you got married here in Fort
In
Kent?
Fort Kent,
Yeah.
yeah. In fact, this next picture, I'll show you, we're just coming out of the church.
Oh, yeah. Oh, qu'on était jeune, hein?
Mhm.
That's where you were leaving for your honeymoon.
Yeah.
The other one is, show me that other one there. What is it? Oh, that's
that's myself, Marie, and my sister that was the bridesmaid, and her husband Peter, and that's Marie's sister, the youngest of the family.
47, t'as dit.
47, 51 in Orono.
Engineer, yeah.
And then there's, whoops, another one here that's Marie and I at a prom in Brunswick, believe you, Brunswick. This is a 250,000 volt DC power supply, cascade and so on.
Holy boy.
I designed that.
You did?
Oh yes. And well, here's some example almost. Another one of the transformers that I designed.
Is that you?
Yeah, that's me. Distribution transformers and instrument transformers.
It's true that you had that as a talent, huh? Your electrical engineering, it was in you from
Oh
the
yes.
very beginning.
Well, you see my picture here on several. There's me with two separate types of transformers that I am standing there. And there's another one yet. This was a DC supply, the transformer that energized that, and then the controls. That'll be hard with the reflection, but this is my retirement party pictures,
1988.
1988. Yeah,
Huh.
that one over here. And this is all the same group. There I am back there. And the Citizen of the Year Award.
Oh, yeah, in Fort Kent.
2001.
Yeah, there's Phil
Phil
Soucy.
Soucy given the
You're the only ones who
presentation.
received that as a couple.
As a couple, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see if there's anything else in here. This is the Fort Kent, the University Award.
Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah, this one is with
Dr. Cost, yeah.
Cost.
Yeah.
This was the senior college
Oh, yes.
group. At that time, Burnett was president of the senior
They
college.
were forming it then?
Yeah, no, this was the year we were forming it. Arms was president.
Oh, yeah.
And now this is the eighth house, I think. Bill.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
You designed them yourself?
Oh yeah. Well, this is the Eagle Lake house with a lot of snow, just the same as that.
De misère avec le cellophane.
The cellophane, the reflection.
Yeah. Okay.
Last year, the Richmond actually.
That you built?
Yep.
Solar house?
Yep. These panels are 3 by 6 feet, and there's I don't remember 3, 9, 27 panels like that.
On the roof?
On the roof. This is the roof. And on the very top of that, this is, I don't have any good pictures that show that, but no. Inside in here, this is what they call a plenum chamber, and that's what's in here. This is open. This heats up the air circulates, goes up and comes back down through the basement, and then comes and circulates around. So it's a house within a house.
OK. Ça, ici que tu avais ça?
That was in Ohio. The Lonesome Pine
We're going to talk about that.
The compressor that I put together for the snowmaking.
Snowmaking, yeah.
And this is just pictures of our construction. We did the addition. This is a blueprint of the addition that I designed. This part of the addition.
At the
At the Lonesome Pine.
Ski Lodge.
Yeah.
Which one is the addition?
This part here, from here to here, is a new
Avant
addition.
ça, we had that.
You had this. Originally was this, and then they added this,
Yeah.
and then I was involved with designing that.
That's a beauty right there.
Yeah.
Boy, I hope we can keep that place going, huh?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I did not design this. This was something, I'm trying to remember what it was. Anyway, I designed this part of it. That was a new addition. We moved that and then built an addition to it. And the whole, this is, you don't see it. That's the same building there.
Yeah.
The Pine.
Your design book?
Design book. This is the information that is required to design a facility like that.
Holy mackerel.
See that? All the everything on compressors and snowmaking equipment and so on. But the volume of that.
Holy jeez. It doesn't happen by itself, huh?
No, not for sure. Oh, I will show you something else. This is the store of Marie's father.
Well, you know, I've seen that before, that picture. Now, where, you said that was on Main Street?
That is about where the Swamp Buck is now.
Okay. I never knew where that was.
Yeah.
I see a picture of Pop Hoyt here with fish.
Yeah, right. Horse and drag there.
Isn't that something, huh?
Yeah, there's a. No, this one is. This is a picture. Well, let's see if I can pull it out. It'd be easier. It's still inside. This is Marie's grandfather. Joseph was father, and his two daughters, which are both nuns. They both died. The last one not too long ago.
What kind of nuns are those? Do you know?
The nuns that were in
Franciscan?
Yeah.
Franciscans? Oh, but that's her father.
That's her grandfather.
Grandfather. Hey, boys.
Yeah, when they went in, he said, you can have both of them unless what you promise is that you're going to keep them together.
Oh.
And I guess they made that promise and they did it.
This one here is Citizen of the Year?
From the state.
Oh, yeah.
And this was...
You and Marie.
Yeah. And this was the
Distinguished Service
Award
Award
from the university.
Oh, yeah.
And foundation membership from Fort Kent, the recognition,
Oh, yeah. Well,
and over there, there's
this one here is...
that's for the 2006, I think. That's the recognition from the state for the same Distinguished Service Award.
'2001.
Yeah, 2001.
Yeah.
Picture of that. They gave me that.
Now that's the ski lodge.
That's the ski lodge, yeah. That's that picture here with Carl. Carl was president of the ski lodge at that time, and Paul Peltzy and I and Carl. And then I don't know how many years, probably 3, 4, 5 years later was when I put in an air compressor.
Yeah.
We used to have a diesel compressor. So I bought that air compressor and donated enough money so they could buy it.
It's a painting?
Nice.
Oh.
That's the ski thing, and we gave her 2 pictures. We said, hey, make a picture out of this. So there's the biathlon and the ski lodge.
Okay.
You see some of the...
Your 2 things you were really involved with.
Yeah, just, reoriented.
Yeah.
Young lady that did that for my 80th birthday, I think is what they...
Did you say it was your niece?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
In fact, she did that painting that's over there, too.
Oh, yeah. Pictures there, quite a bit. Now we're back with Lucien in his living room, and you moved here in '88. How about Carl?
No, we moved there in '93.
'93.
I was in a space between my retirement and then the time I came back here. I operated a used X-ray equipment sales business. Carl was in Germany. He had some contacts, and we were selling used equipment to third world countries.
Really?
So we were uninstalling it from different picker installation, getting it packaged and shipping it overseas. And
who installed it over there?
We had people that we would train to do that. Yeah.
Did you ever go there?
No, I never did.
Now, what was Carl doing in Germany?
He was manager of marketing for the same company that I used to work for in Europe.
Okay.
So he was traveling all over the European continent and Russia and everywhere.
And what do you... why would somebody... Okay, a hospital would have X-ray and they want to upgrade.
Some of them did not have any equipment of that kind. It primarily was computed tomography, the CT units.
Oh, okay.
They didn't have that equipment, and they couldn't afford the $300,000 for a new equipment, or even more sometimes. And we would sell the used equipment for in the vicinity of $60,000, $70,000. It would cost, almost a quarter of that to make the arrangement to move it and so on, but we made a few bucks on it,
So this used equipment was not because it was damaged?
No, in the state they would upgrade to the newer unit, and we'd buy that from the hospital and resell it in Europe.
Oh, yeah.
Pakistan and Afghanistan.
Wherever they needed it. So what got you to come back home?
Well, after working in that facility, this was crazy hours because we were talking to people that their time difference is 10, 12 hours different from us. I got tired of that quick. I said, okay, enough of that. I don't need that. So we decided. And then Carl was finishing his assignment in Europe. And when we decided to come back home, we had, for quite a period of time, we'd been looking for business opportunities all over in New Hampshire and Vermont and so on.
For him.
Yeah, for him. We almost bought a ski area in Vermont one time, but it didn't work. Ended up over here, and when we were coming here, Carl said he was coming from Germany. He says, find out if you can find somebody at the university might be interested in a position teaching international marketing, because that's what he was doing. So we inquired, and yeah, there was an opportunity. But then when he came, he took the job as planning and development for
I
town.
remember that. Yeah.
And he did that for 2 years or something like that. And at the time, he was keeping his eye out for opportunity. And Valley Auto became available. Dr. Long wanted to retire, and he bought it for a good price, and it worked out for him. He had a good 15 years for it.
Yeah. He was the development coordinator for the town of Fort
Yeah,
Captain.
planning and, yeah.
Okay, so you're here too at the same time.
Yeah, we had come here before in 93, and they moved in, I think it's about 95, they moved back here. In that area, something in that nature.
So when you moved here, you went right away to Eagle Lake, and
I bought a lot there that one of my brothers, the one in Connecticut, had this lot. He says, I'm never going to do anything with it. He says, you want to buy it? So we bought it and built the house there. And
that's almost at the end of the road. Huh?
It is at the very end of the road.
The very
house
end.
On the right. Yeah, beyond that is the state land.
Okay. It was a long ways from town.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things, I was down here every day between working at the Skito or the Batlon or Valley Auto and so on, and I said, well, before I get too old to be able to do this, we're going to move into town. And in fact, when we built in Eagle Lake, I could have bought a lot here from Bruce. Bruce was still around at the time. And I could have brought a lot for nothing if I'd have bought the material from him.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, and I ended up buying a lot from him. This was after his bankruptcy, so the lots were not too expensive.
Yeah. Bruce Freeman.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it looks like to me you were interested in skiing all your life.
Well, yes. As a youngster, you used to ski. There was a hill right across the road from our house, and we used to ski across there and actually had a jump. The road was not open for automobiles at that time. It was just a path, with the plows they used for horses and so on.
Yeah.
But we'd make a jump to jump over the road, and we'd come down, jump over the road, and come up and land on the other side of the road. So this developed into something, and then all the time I worked for General Electric in Massachusetts. There were ski areas next door, close by, and so we always skied, and so we always had a keen interest in the sports.
So that was your pastime as a kid?
Oh yeah.
There was nothing much else.
No, well, you made tracks and go sledding and stuff like that,
Yeah,
but skiing was still the
So
main
Carl
thing.
developed the same interest.
Yeah.
Very much into skiing.
And he spent quite a bit of time out west working for some of the ski areas out there too.
Oh, is that right?
So he knew the business.
Is his wife from out west?
She's out from Montana.
Montana, huh? You met her while he was doing some work?
Working there and going to school there.
So here's Carl Theriault buying Valley Auto at the time, which sold Chevrolet and GMC,
And Buick,
Pontiac,
and Oldsmobile.
Oldsmobile. See, there's two of them that don't exist anymore.
Oldsmobile is gone. Pontiac is gone.
The others are Chevrolet still here.
Chevy and Buick still here.
And GMC.
Yeah.
But that's not the only cars that have disappeared in our
Oh,
lifetime.
yeah. Packard and Hudson. And
Yeah, and Studebaker.
And Studebaker. Studebaker was one of the early ones.
Yeah.
Well, there were some before that did never lasted very long, but Studebaker had been around for a long time.
Yeah. And you take Plymouth, you know.
Yeah.
That's
right.
That was a common car.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
In our day, and Plymouth is gone, and it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Carl had quite a run with that.
Oh yes, he had 15 years of it. Had a good business going.
Yeah.
And he enjoyed it. It was challenge at time, but
yeah. Employed about 20 people all the time.
Yeah, just about.
Now, in the meantime, while he's doing this, and you guys are involved in your community here, besides being the development coordinator for the town, you got interested in the ski area.
Yeah, he I think he was still working for the town at the time when he was president of the Skito.
Oh, okay.
And they were talking about, we needed an expansion to this facility to have meaningful event and so on. So he approached me to see if I would design an addition to it. So, and I did, and I ended up building most of it.
Yeah. Something that didn't pay much.
Yeah, that was 1998. No, more than that. 96, I think, is when it was when we put that addition on. But it was fun. It was a great bunch of people, volunteer helping and so on.
Yeah.
So Paul Peltzer and I have spent a lot of hours there, volunteer hours, building that facility.
Well, this Quito, they started doing that in '64.
Yes.
And I had moved to town in '63.
Yeah.
But it was all volunteer.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
Equipment was donated, and
they rigged up a rope tow arrangement up at the top there, and it was quite a rig. In fact, some of the parts for that old rope tow still stored in the back there.
Now we've had some strange winters. Usually a Skito like that, you need the Christmas break.
Right. That was one of the problems we were having. In fact, the one year we were having an event here, we did not have hardly any snow, and we got some warm weather. And so Carl Soderberg had bought 3 snow guns that he had bought to make snow on some of the trails in Caribou. So we talked to him about getting the snow guns, and we went and got the snow guns, brought them here. We rigged some structure to mount the snow gun on the lift towers. We actually clamped onto the towers.
Okay.
And then we borrowed irrigation piping from Gil Cotto, his tractor from Gil Cotto, a compressor from some guy in Santa Gat. Anyway, we ended up making enough snow from that structure to be able to have a great event here.
Oh, you did have the event.
So then after this, we decided, hey, we gotta, if it would be great if we had our own equipment. So I got the job of designing a system, making a proposal to the board, and they said, yeah, let's go do it. So I ended up finishing the design and ordering the material and setting it up. And at the first we had one pipeline going up, and we were able to make snow on two slopes, the one on either side of the lift line. And that worked pretty good for a couple of years. And we decided, well, we have to run hoses from the one line we had all the way across to the other side and make the. So we decided, well, we'll put up another line on the other side. So now we're able to make snow on major three slopes, and we were operating with diesel air compressor, and that was always a pain to get that rented from somebody and bring it. In fact, one year I had to go to Portland to pick one up and so on. So we decided we're going to put an electric generator, electric compressor in there, and that's the picture you saw on the wall there.
Oh, yeah.
We got that, and now just go push the button and you're ready to go. And the water pump for that, the water line, we're tapped into the town's water line, the 10-inch line that goes up to the reservoir. We bring in a 6-inch water line to the pump house that's next to the lift mechanism down there. And we have 2 motors there. We can develop around 200 pounds of pressure, water pressure. And we pumped water up a 4-inch pipeline all the way up, and then we have the air compressor on a 2-inch water line, air line going up there.
So now you're covering the whole.
We cover three main slopes, and that's the main thing. Other than that, we wait till we get some natural snow for the others.
Yeah. Now, how much does that cost?
Well, the first part of it was about $125,000. That was with me doing all the work and so on. That same unit would have probably cost us well over $250,000 if we had somebody contract to do it.
Yeah.
I hired a welder, Kevin Degg from Soldier Pond, to come in and using Carl's tractor to handle the pipe. So we were welding it, and so we welded all the pipes together that first summer. So that went out pretty good. The next phase of it was another $56,000 for the other line. And then we spent over $35,000 for the electrical compressor. So, we're talking about over $300,000 for the whole system over the evolution.
People don't realize that.
I know.
You go skiing.
Yep.
That's all you do.
Yeah.
And you might complain about the fee.
Yeah.
But hey.
Oh, yeah.
And how about every year you pay for the water, don't you?
Every year we pay the town for water.
Yeah.
I tried to get them to give us a break on it, and they said, they couldn't do that. They'd have to give the break to everybody. So, okay. I investigated about pumping water from the river. That would have cost $100,000 to set up the pump down there and so on. And I says, well, for what we pay for water, it's less than the interest we're paying on the $100,000 loan. So we're paying somewhere around $3,000-4,000 a year for water, for making snow.
Depending on how much snow we have, some years you might not use it much.
Most of them we start at the time when we don't have much snow on the ground, and we want to make snow so that the kids have the holiday vacation with good snow on the ground. So it's almost the same thing every year. It's about the same thing.
I remember when I was a kid, we used to go skating on Long Lake at Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Were the winters longer? Do you remember if they were?
I think somehow they were earlier, because I remember skating actually like that earlier in the year too.
Yeah.
And of course at that time people were not quite as afraid of going on thin ice.
Yeah. Yeah, as soon as there was ice, we were on it.
Right.
And big snowbanks, like...
well, we got some pretty good snowbanks.
This year we have. Yeah. So this is a big project. Took most of your time?
Well, until... I did that after I supervised the building of that facility over here. And that was in 1998. When we started, we had started doing some trail clearing and so on. And the first year I had about 5 or 6, 8 targets set up over there. And we got a call, we were at a meeting at the Lonesome Pine, got a call from a facility in New York, I think it was. They were supposed to have a biathlon competition at that location. Had no snow. and they knew we were working on a system here, so they called up and say, could you hold the event in Fort Kent? And this Carl got the call at the Skeeto, and he came back and talked to us about it, and said, "Yeah, we'll make it work." So, well, at that time, as I said, I had 8 targets on. They wanted 16. I put in 8 more, built on snow. And then we borrowed some tents from the National Guard. We had no buildings there. We borrowed some tents to work.
You mean the 10th Mountain building was not?
Oh no, there was no building there at all. Nothing there. So we put that event on. For that was our first event that we had up here. So then after that, now we said, well, we got to build a building. By then I had done quite a bit of survey work to get the range set up. And that year we had a building design. I had designed the building, but they decided they wanted a building designed by somebody that was involved with biathlon. So they had a guy in Germany that came up with a basic design of what this is. And they gave me that, and I modified it and so on. And then I supervised the construction. Jim Bouchard built the building for us.
Okay. Remember the year that was?
That was in 2001.
So the event we had, there was not the World Cup, though.
Well, we had 2.
We had 2, but I mean, that one you're talking about there.
That was just
a North American,
yeah,
or
it was
junior.
North American event, yeah.
I think it was junior North American.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're having in Presque Isle next weekend.
Yeah. I really can't say for sure what the name of it was because I don't remember that. But I know it was, I don't think it was a junior. It was a senior, but it was a North American competition.
Yeah. I remember because I filmed it, and they had big parties at the ski lodge.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Andy Shepard was there, and it was a big thing.
Oh yeah.
For Fort Kent.
That's because of trying to do this on a shoestring all the time.
Yeah. We just we did it.
Oh yeah.
That's what they came out with, this little town that could.
Yeah.
Now we look at Presque Isle and we say, did they take this away from us or what?
No. I think it's a matter of facility, accommodation for the athletes.
Yeah.
We just don't have it, and Presque Isle has capability. And when they're saying, hey, they want facilities within 15 miles of the venue, you can't even take them to Edmundston for that. So as a result of that, when we utilize the facilities that are within 30 miles, we have enough facilities. But other than that, and there's no way nobody's going to spend $5 million sitting in a motel up here and then not use it the rest of the time, And
that'd be very difficult.
If they use it, they would kill the facility that's in town already. So there's not that much volume on a year-round base.
Yeah, we need something year-round.
Yeah.
So what do you see for the future of the 10th Mountain?
It's going to be a struggle. We're going to be looking at more local support, and we'll have to find to charge fees for using it. I mean, we do it at Lonesome Pine. We sell season pass, and we'll have to do something of that nature to support it. If we were able to get some event here that would produce money, but most of those events don't produce money.
Really?
No. It costs money to set them up, and by the time you've paid for what it costs, you don't really get much out of it.
Yeah, it's like, I remember the first World Cup we had in 2004. The businesses in town said they didn't benefit much from it.
Yeah.
Because all the tents up there had food.
Yeah.
And people that went up there, they stayed up there. Yeah. And then the biathletes and they're always training. They don't go out
Right, yeah.
to beer joints, and they don't go out to restaurants.
Yeah.
They're always training all the time.
Actually, the food up there, though, was really just a one meal,
Yeah.
kind of a thing. They still have to have 2 meals, but most of the time they're staying in facilities where they have their breakfast there. They might take 1 meal out a day.
Yeah.
And again, that's not a big deal.
Well, it was very exciting in
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
204, especially the first one, with all these TV stations from Europe.
Yeah.
Well, they were saying during the Olympics there that biathlon was number one winter sport.
In Europe, it
In
is.
Europe.
Oh, yes. It's been that for a long time.
Yeah. Even though hockey is
Yeah.
popular, but biathlon is
Oh, yeah.
it's really.
It draws more crowds than any of the...
And you have to be really, really in shape because, I filmed them coming in there,
Yeah.
and they just drop.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They just drop on the ground, and they're struggling to
It's
get
like,
their breath.
like the long cross-country skiing they had. They must have had 60 people starting out on that thing. I couldn't believe.
Yeah,
And,
on a les deux lovebirds ensemble.
Right.
Marie Audebert, hein?
Yep.
So your family is mostly not around Fort Kent, is it?
Absolutely in Fort Kent
Yeah?
Not
for a
anymore.
long time. Not anymore. There's
No.
nobody here.
Is that right?
My father was here and married here and had all their family here. And the house is right there on Elm Street.
Elm Street, yeah. So you were involved very much also besides the skiing. Was this senior center?
Yes.
Afterward.
I started, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago with working with them. But when they built that facility, I was the engineer responsible for getting drawings approved and so on
Oh, okay.
for the facility. And since then, I've been in membership and so on
Yeah.
with Arms Levy.
Yeah, Arms is a good salesman.
I said I wouldn't do that job unless Arm was helping me.
Yeah.
Now he's president again, but he's still doing the thing. And,
Yeah. You're involved in the seniors college thing?
We were, yeah, both of us were. We at the very beginning.
Yeah.
We were on board.
Was that hard to get going, or?
It wasn't that bad to get going. It's been a struggle to keep it going.
Yeah.
We had at one time about 75 members. It was new and people were interested and so on. I'm going to take that away from further. And we've run somewhere around 35, 40 membership now. But it's still going.
Yeah, it's hard to get off your seat and
Yeah.
do something, you know. If people get comfortable and it's hard to get them going.
I've got an easy job, but part of it, I'm the treasurer, so all I do is make sure that the money's well spent.
Yeah. I remember when we were very lucky that we were talking about where to build a senior center, and we were
Oh, yes.
going behind the church.
Yeah.
Isn't that lucky we didn't go there?
Yeah.
Oh, and how.
Yeah. I mean, I had to tear it down.
It's a good place. There's good parking.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's growing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's very
You
popular.
didn't happen to see Don Raymond's presentation when we had the 10th year anniversary over there?
Yes.
You did see that?
Yeah.
Good. That was,
I filmed it.
He did a good job of that.
Reynold Theriault was
Right.
Yeah, you know, and the membership, I think at the time we were talking about it, was 200, and now they're talking about 800.
Yeah.
800 now.
That's du bon sens.
Oh, yeah.
With Arms and Lucien, nobody can say no. Arms. We'll get them.
Well, you know, somebody has to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
And faut pas que tu aies peur là, de lui demander,
Yeah.
No.
you know.
Well, that's one thing with Arms. He's got a good way of doing it.
Yeah,
People have a hard time refusing
Yeah.
him. That's all right.
It's for tremendous use of that place.
Oh, yeah.
They've got something going every day, huh?
Well, we have, the Aroostook Agency on Aging has meals every day, every noon, except for Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
So that's 20 days a month that they use the facility for around 2.5, 3 hours or something like that. And then they've got card games
Yeah.
and bingo, and card games 2-3 days afternoon a day, and bingo at least once or twice a day a week, I think.
Shalimar.
Shalimar.
Shalamang, cribbage.
Cribbage, oh, yeah, almost every afternoon.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a great place, and it's beautiful. It's new.
It's a nice facility.
And am I right when I say it's paid for?
It was
Yeah.
strictly paid for completely when they finished it. The only thing they raised some money afterwards was to do the paving for the parking lot.
Oh, yeah.
And Arms was involved with that too. He came here and talked to me about it, so I said, I'll put something together. So I put a document for him to use, to promote, to get it. And so I think he raised like $25,000.
They can't refuse him. They cannot say no.
Yeah, he's good. Paving is something else. It's very expensive. Huh?
Yeah, and a lot of the funds that were raised during that time were not donation. They were
Yeah.
a loan, and many of those were then donated after.
Yeah, I remember that. I think
would say
we
there's probably at least
Yeah.
$5,000 that was donated outright.
yeah you'd donate it for a while, and then they would
Yeah.
give it back to you. But most people
Yeah,
never accepted it
exactly.
back.
Yeah.
So it's doing very well, so that
Yeah, we have money in the bank, but we recognize that we need to keep the thing alive and to get. We have one good fundraiser, that raffle that we have every year.
Oh, yeah.
It raises $3,000 or something like that. Our membership, we were talking about between $7,000 and $8,000 a year for membership. We rent the facility. I don't know how much we get. I know we rent. It's almost like $300 a rental for the facility when they use it tonight, the new kitchen and all that stuff. And so we have a few CDs in the bank.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Most members that are not involved too much, they don't realize how much it costs
Yeah.
just to keep the building there without doing anything.
Just the insurance,
Yeah,
almost $3,000 a year.
yeah. See, that doesn't show.
And most of those members, we never see them there. They just donate.
Yeah.
$10,
Well, at least
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
nice.
it's like the Casey Hall.
That's right.
They've got I don't know how many members.
Yeah.
600, I think.
Yeah.
Most people don't go to meetings, and the whole thing is for the building. Bingo helps the building. Now they've got a lottery going. Rentals, and even rentals are not like they used to be. They used to have dances a lot. There's no more dancing,
No more of that.
and weddings a lot less.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So,
Well, when
Funerals.
you rent a place
Yeah,
for
funerals.
$400 or $500, you got to think about it quite
Yeah,
seriously before
yeah.
you do that.
Yeah, times change.
The little town that could.
Yeah, we just don't realize how times
Oh, I
change.
think
And
One of the things that she hasn't talked about here, when we were in Ohio, she started a business of decorating children's clothing, appliques, and so on.
oh, is that right?
Her and her daughter. Her daughter was in
My daughter.
Massachusetts.
And I
and
was selling.
She was selling
And selling.
in Ohio, going all over Cleveland and Youngstown and stuff. It was quite a
So what's that now?
It was baby clothes.
Baby clothes?
Baby clothes that you went to the stores that were, selling baby clothes.
Yeah.
Go all around and sell. And it was unique because it was all hand done. And we sold. People just liked it.
So we're talking about something that you would add on to a dress?
We'd add on some little panties. I just
Yeah.
gave some away.
It was like kids' underwear primarily. They would apply like a heart or a little animal or something else, and it was applique would be stitched all around the little appliques on the thing. It would just dress up
Yeah.
something like that,
Yeah.
you know.
And little corduroy overalls.
Oh, yeah.
That sort of thing.
Yeah.
So you'd buy
We
the,
bought the overalls
okay, and then you,
and then bought the material to do the appliques, and my daughter in Massachusetts did most of it actually, because I was selling, and if I had to make one, I'd make one. But she was at home with her kids at that time, and she wanted to stay home, so I said, well, let's have a business, you stay home and we'll do this. And it worked. Until then she started to school. And now she has almost a PhD in teaching religion.
oh, is that right?
And the bishop in Worcester really wanted her there, but she wanted to stay. They had two Catholic schools.